My task today is talk about a good friend and former colleague, City of Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner. I'd like to say a lot more about Sylvester and tell you how long I've known him, but I know he will like that because we both like to think we're still young and have a lot of energy and can still do so much for the region. And we can, and that's the kind of spirit that I like about this mayor. And while we've shared some summer moments, especially going through Hurricane Harvey and the tax flood before that, I can tell you that this mayor is a mayor that you can see on the spot tackling the challenges from day one. I remember after the tax day flood, that just the day after, he didn't wait for staff to go and departments to go over there. He was there on the ground, on the scene, immediately listening to people to see what needed to be done. And we certainly saw that too after Hurricane Harvey. It's the mayor's optimism and his vision for this city of Houston, and the vision that also includes the entire region because it all works together, that I admire most from this mayor. He is so optimistic that I just can't get him to stop calling me Congresswoman. I keep saying, Mayor, there's this thing in November called an election. No, you're going to do it, you're going to do it. So it's that kind of optimism that I think we need to get the job done in so many areas that I know that not only will he succeed this term, he'll continue to succeed as long as he wants to. So this region is one of opportunity. It is one of diversity. It's a region that welcomes everyone no matter where they come from, and that we know that as long as they're here and work hard, that they truly can be anything they want to be. Our mayor believes that. He's living proof of that. And we know that part of that background was that he was a Cougar at U of H, that he did go to Harvard. He was in the legislature. He served for 27 years, 21 on appropriations, making the decisions about where the state's budget went. So all that together, put together, gives us one of the best mayors we've seen in Houston. I'm delighted to call him a friend, a former colleague, and a good friend of this region, Mayor Sylvester Turner.
Look, let me just say good afternoon to everyone. Let me thank the Congresswoman. Let me thank the state senator, Sylvia Garcia. But as we say in my church, you call those things that are not as though they are. So thank you, and she's been a friend for a long time. Let me just say it's a pleasure, it's a delight for me to be with everyone this afternoon. In fact, I just got back in town from the Gas Tech conference in Barcelona, and had an opportunity. Shell representatives were there, and Exxon and Cheniere, and they had about 30,000 delegates that were at that conference. A lot of talk about Texas and the Gulf Coast region there as well. So it's good to be back. But before I go any further, in addition to the Senator, let me also acknowledge Betty Russo, who is with the Governor's Office of Economic Development and Tourism. Where's Betty? She's back there, so let me say that. And then, of course, to the Economic Alliance and everyone affiliated with there. But I just got back on last night talking about LNG and the development that's taking place in the Gulf Coast region. And it's not just about building a facility, it's about building the infrastructure. A lot of conversation about the diversity of supply, the diversity of infrastructure, and the port. Spent a lot of time talking about the port in Barcelona at the Gas Tech conference. The good news, it's been away from here for a long, long time, but the Gas Tech conference is coming back to the city of Houston next year in September, so we're expecting about 30,000. In fact, they are expecting a pretty good attendance next year, more so than was in Barcelona this time, and also looking at putting us into their rotation so that every 4 or 5 years they'll be coming to the city of Houston. So I'm very, very pleased with that. And of course, then in 2020, the World Petroleum Congress will be returning to the city of Houston, to the United States. Hadn't been in the United States in the last 32 years, and so coming back in 2020, and so really excited about that. This is an important region. You know, many ways as go this region, let's go to port, so we'll go not only the city of Houston, but the whole state. And resiliency is a very important element. And why is the area so critical to protect Houston's port? And why do we talk about the economic risks associated? I think the numbers speak for themselves. The Houston port is the #1 port in the United States in terms of foreign tonnage. I know that there are some commissioners here from the port. Where are you? I know there's some commissioners here. Clyde and others. I know they're somewhere. With the port, but it's the #1 port in the United States when it comes to foreign tonnage. Over $600 billion per year in direct output to the U.S. economy. That's no small change. It provides over 3 million direct and indirect U.S. jobs, more than 500 chemical plants in the region, many along the Houston Ship Channel. And then when you consider, we talked about this especially after Hurricane Harvey, and if it had hit the Galveston Bay, about what the impact that could have occurred if it had hit. Well, when you consider that we are key producers of many fuel sources, 27% of the nation's gasoline supply comes through the port, 60% of the nation's aviation fuel, 35% of the nation's natural gas production, and 42% of the nation's specialty chemical feedstock pretty much would have been impacted if you talk about a storm hitting the port. In terms of when you look at building in resiliency and building a stronger, more vibrant city as we move forward, from Hurricane Ike alone, 2008, the damage to our area was about $30 billion. From Hurricane Harvey last year, the estimated damage caused by Harvey was more than $100 billion. And a direct hit of a Category 3 above hurricane is simply incalculable. And so there's every reason why we need to invest to build a more resilient, sustainable area as we move into the future. And what does that mean? That means if we're going to build, for example, the coastal spine, which we need to do, then we will need federal funding of anywhere between $11 to $15 billion. Sounds like a lot of money, but quite frankly, when I look at what was done in Louisiana after the storm hit them, they invested the feds put in about $17 billion, so that's a large sum. The coastal spine for us will be anywhere between 11 and 15 billion. And the mitigation ought to come before the disaster, not the disaster and then the mitigation. It doesn't do anybody any good to wait until 27% of your gasoline supply is affected, 60% of the nation's aviation fuel is affected, 35% of the nation's natural gas, 42% of the nation's specialty chemical, and then you decide, okay, now it's time to do the coastal spine. We kind of have done things backwards. I would use another word, but I go to church. We kind of do things in reverse, and that really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And this is not a Houston solution. It's not really a Gulf Coast solution. It's not a Texas solution. Really is vital to our national security, and that the country as a whole ought to invest. And then we are flying all over the world, like in Barcelona, talking about the Gulf Coast and LNG, and the fact that the U.S. is now an exporter and not an importer, and the oil shale gas revolution that has taken place. And if we don't protect our assets, if we don't protect our infrastructure, then we are simply not learning. And if we only needed a reminder, let's take a look at what's happening on the East Coast, in the Carolinas with Florence. And we can see what happens when you have a storm surge and everything kind of gets backed up, then you really have a major problem. So Mother Nature is certainly reminding us We need to do something. We need to be proactive. And, there are some things that I think government can do right, but with all of us working together, I think we need to protect the assets that exist within our area. And what can we do? We can take 5 minutes to write to your representatives in Congress, write to Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia, to advocate and offer her personal support to the coastal spine. Or you could go to buildthecoastalspine.rallycongress.net and follow the prompts. Or you could talk to your family and friends and encourage them to rally with you. Or you could watch the video recently produced by Space City Files and funded by Bay Area Coastal Protection Alliance, Can Unprepared, a Nation at Risk. And look, let me tell you, the Port of Houston represents the highest economic density on the 52-mile ship channel and is a key and vital economic and workforce engine for the Houston region. The port's economic reach expands beyond Houston, the region, the state, and directly impacts our national economy. The port is responsible, as I said, 3 million indirect or direct jobs. But the petrochemical skills gap is a growing threat as it is becoming increasingly challenging to fill open low and middle skill positions. According to a study by McKinsey and Company, almost 40% of American employers indicate that they cannot find people with the skills that they need even at the entry-level position. And why is that when there are communities and census tracts experiencing double-digit unemployment rate? For instance, within a 5-mile radius of specific sites along the Port of Houston, within 5 miles, more than 30% of the census tracts have double-digit unemployment rates at a time when the U.S. unemployment rate is less than 4%. Within 5 miles of of this area of the port, 5 miles. And on one hand, jobs aren't being filled, and on the other, people are not connecting to these jobs. There's a true disconnect. Doesn't seem to make sense. Young people are not being equipped with the education or technical skills and therefore are not ready to enter the workforce to meet existing job demands. And a growing population of people between the ages of 25 and 45 are underemployed, underskilled, and represent untapped talent that can help close the employment gap if given access to the job and workforce training opportunities for high-demand jobs. A 2018 survey conducted in this region by the East Harris County Manufacturers Association found that between January 2018 and December 2021, approximately 4,500 direct employees and resident contractor hires will be needed due to attrition and newly created skilled crafts positions for industrial construction. The Greater Houston Partnership Upskill Houston program is addressing the skills gap issue by partnering with community colleges to develop middle skills curriculum and training programs. The Office of Economic Development is working closely with Economic Alliance to identify entry-level low employment barrier positions that can best be upskilled into middle skill positions and develop career mapping from entry to middle skills to supervisory positions. A high school diploma, GED, and ability to pass a drug and background check can qualify for labor helper positions in the following construction crafts positions, beginning at $15 average pay rate: crane and rigging, carpentry, instrumentation, pipe fitting, millwright, welding. With an associate degree or trade certificate, the opportunities expand to include positions in the following areas, beginning at $22 per pay rate: process and analyzer technicians, instrument technicians, electrical technicians, millwrights, pipe fitter, welders, maritime, and pipe inspectors. I've had conversations, continue to have conversations with area school superintendents and principals and others. And I'm telling them, sometimes we try to put all of our students on one track. And I want everybody to go to college. If you want to go to college, I want you to go. I went. Many people in this room went. But when I also was coming through, We provided students with multiple options. And the reality is not one approach that fits all. What is important is that we provide individuals with an opportunity to take care of themselves and to take care of their families. And I think sometimes in our desire to know what's best for everybody, we are missing the boat for so many of our students. And we really, really have to think through what we are doing. And what I've said to superintendents and principals, be very careful. Because when you try to lead students in just one direction, you're going to miss many, many others. And the key is there are job opportunities where people can take care of their families, become a welder, making $55,000 or more, with the opportunity to do even greater. But if you don't expose the students to these opportunities, if you don't talk to them, if you don't at least put it before them, then you are literally cutting off their options. Not everybody is going to move in the same direction. But I think what we have a responsibility of saying is that these are all of the options. These are all of the things that are available. And let's not glamorize some jobs and not glamorize others. The key is provide all of our students, all of them, with the options and then let them choose. And based on the most recent industrial survey, 75% of the people in the industry were introduced to industry through family and friends. And how can we, as a unified collaboration, introduce jobs to the thousands of people who do not have friends or family to expose them to industrial construction positions? And what can we do as executive leaders of the industry to help one, close the skill gap, two, provide sustainable employment to those seeking advancement, and three, meet industry hiring requirements to allow them to achieve maximum production? We have to be intentional about reaching the broader population to promote job opportunities. We have to, where practical, develop internships and apprenticeship programs for working adults and high school graduates to create a workforce pipeline. Utilize Petrochem's website to post vacant positions. Consider working with programs who offer second chances to mothers and fathers who took time off to care for children and are reentering the workforce. People who have made mistakes and have entered into a workforce reentry program and receiving the needed training and counseling to effectively and productively reenter the workforce. And we have to engage in effective PR and marketing campaigns, including our area school district superintendents and principals, and the utilization of social media. Quite frankly, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have a booming enterprise like the port and all of the companies around it, and to have all of these job opportunities, to be living in the city of Houston, where there's so much promise, and yet and still, there are positions that are available, and we don't have the skilled labor force to meet those needs. That's just an indictment on us all. And what I would hate is to have all this available, and then you got to bring in people to fill these opportunities from other places. That literally doesn't make any sense. But I think all of us have to assume some responsibility for that. Because if you talk up certain areas and talk down others, then what do you expect young folk and young people to do? So let's glamorize all the jobs. And in this city, I value those who have all of the degrees, and I value those who may not have a degree, but have a desire to work, smart enough to take their skill and rise up the chain. And I know I'm right about it, because when you come out of a family where neither one of my parents graduated from high school, but my dad worked at Continental IMSCO as a painter for 31 years and helped to raise 9 kids, and I think he did one heck of a job. Don't dare tell me that my daddy and what he did was not important as Sylvester Turner, who graduated from Harvard. All are important, and we need to value them all, and we need to take advantage of all of the opportunities that are coming into play, because of the port and the surrounding area. So we got a lot of work to do. I want to thank you for what you do. I want to thank you for helping to lead the way. I want to thank you all for rebuilding after Harvey in a short period of time, for demonstrating that we are Houston strong, we are still standing, and there is no other area that can rebuild as quickly as the city of Houston. But now we have to protect what we have, and resiliency has to be a part, and we have to invest before the storm and not after the storm. And I don't want any of our companies in our area to go anyplace else. I don't want you going to Louisiana. I don't want you going to any place I know you're not going to California. They tax everything. I don't want you going to the East Coast, okay? And I don't want people going outside of the country when you can stay right here. If you need something, and if we can't meet your needs, or if you run into a challenge, you let us know. And I think we can get out of your way in order for you to do your business and to do it well. Thank you for being in the city of Houston and along the coast.